Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Big Bass Podcast, the fishing show where size matters. I'm Ken Duke, very happy to have my co-host back. His beard sprain is all better; it's out of the sling now, and here he is.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I'm Terry Battisti. Our producer and engineer is Nathan Benson. This episode of the Big Bass Podcast is all about glide baits, but with a twist. The twist being it's from an East Coast point of view. And tonight we have bait maker extraordinaire Keith Thomas on the show and his company Black Talon Custom Lures. Some of the nicest glide baits that you're going to see, the nicest ones that we've seen in a long time. So,
Welcome, Keith, and Keith. Before we start visiting with you here and catching up, I want to say that the glide bait you were showing us at the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame party just a few nights ago.
Yep.
I'd seen pictures of it before from our mutual friend Brian Stockwell, Brian the Carpenter.
Yep.
And
Yep.
I think it is the finest looking glide bait and gizzard shad imitation that I've ever seen, hands down.
Oh, thank you.
It's
unbelievable.
a wildly impressive thing.
Pictures don't do it justice. You have to hold it in your hand. I mean, it was insane.
And luckily, folks, I took a few pictures of that bait, which we're showing you right now. But this thing looked like it should be, when I set it on the table to take pictures, it looked like it should be flopping to get off. It's that lifelike looking. Well, Keith Thomas, thanks for joining us on the Big Bass Podcast. Let me start by saying that.
It's awesome to be here.
And man, it was, now I had met Keith at the Bassmaster Classic, I guess in 2022 maybe. And got to see some of his work, and Brian the Carpenter had shared some of it with me, and I was always enormously impressed. Wonderful guy, just an incredibly enjoyable guy to visit with. And Keith, it was great to see you again at the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame function.
Yeah.
Did you have a good time?
It was incredible. I've never been exposed to anything like that. So it was to have the people that were in that room and me to be sitting within arm's reach of them. Never in a million years would I ever.
Well, with your skills, you belong in that room. Not so much me. Now, Terry works with the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame and provides them with a lot of first class content. I had to sneak in through the service entrance, but I was excited to be there too because so many people there I enjoy and admire. And I did get a few shots. We'll have to show one of them right here. Of Keith with Bill Dance. And for what it's worth, folks, Keith's a very a tall guy. He's actually taller than Bill, but he was scrunching down and then Bill would scrunch down. And it was just a kind of a strange photo experience. But but we were there to see our mutual friend Mike Iaconelli get inducted into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. And you can go to YouTube, search Bass Fishing Hall of Fame 2023. You can watch the entire induction ceremony right there. It was a really special and a first-class operation. I got to give the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame props for that. It was a really, really wonderful evening, and they did a great job with it.
It was impressive.
Yeah. I mean, what would you say? There was 300-400 people there. I mean, at the dinner. I mean, it was packed. I don't think there was an empty chair.
Yeah, it was busy. I would say a couple hundred people were there, including 20 people in their blue jackets, which signifies that they've been inducted into the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. And of course, along with Mike Iaconelli, there were 92-year-old Glenn Andrews, one of the early standouts of tournament fishing, and also the late Bruce Holt. He was an outdoor writer and a tackle executive with the G. Loomis Company. So there were 3 folks getting inducted just a few nights ago, and Keith, Terry, and I were excited to be there and had a really good time.
Yeah, and then we went to the after party, and that's where we really got to talk to Keith and get to see some of his craftsmanship.
Yeah. And Keith, how long have you been at this? How long have you been making baits on your own?
Like dib and dab in them. Probably late 80s. Like when we really started to like tinker with stuff. And it wasn't like we were in the, like we didn't have a shop. Like we literally, I was over at my buddy's house. We're just kids, man. And we're out there, we're 15, 16, 18 years old, and we're just whittling away and trying different stuff. And like, we had no idea, dude. Like no books. Like we had no literature.
No.
We messed a lot of stuff up, but we learned a lot. You
Yeah.
know.
So were you making build baits, or were you making baits without bills, or what?
Yeah, we did some with a bill, but mostly, like back then, our way of thinking was like we didn't put any joints in it. We, like it was one piece. We didn't even we had nothing to go off of, and we were using like really, like big oversized screw eyes. That's the only thing we could find at the hardware
Yep.
store. Drilling holes in the bottom, like taping weights to this stuff, and then we found out that you had to seal the wood, because they all split. But it was a learning curve, And then I got into I love surf casting for stripers. I mean, there's just something about being on the beach or a jetty and slinging a big old hunk of wood out there and catching stripers. And I dove into that pretty hard. And I did really well. And at some point, I'm going to go start making some more striper plugs again. That's really where I cut a name into fishing was stripers.
Now,
But I live here in PA, but I always, did the freshwater stuff too.
Right.
that's what's awfully impressive to me is you're making a lot of big swim baits, big glide baits, and you're there in Pennsylvania. When you got started in the 80s, when you were just a teenager,
Yeah.
did you know much about what was going on out in California with the
Not a
AC
word.
plug?
Honestly,
Not a word.
Not a word.
Yeah.
So Terry,
That's the thing.
Terry,
That's
what
the
happened to your
thing.
theory, Terry, about
Hey.
guys bringing the big swim baits to the West? What happened to that?
Bringing them from the west to the east, you mean? Well, I guess it, just got flushed down the old shitter.
But you know what?
Yeah,
I'm sure across the country, somewhere, somebody, like maybe a muskie guy was throwing these and he's ripping in some bass, and he's not a bass guy, but his buddy is. Like somewhere along the line, somebody had to kind of dab into this.
well, you talk to the muskie guys up in like Wisconsin and Minnesota, and yeah, they would catch the occasional 4 or 5 pound bass on a muskie lure, but they were muskie fishermen. They didn't want bass,
Right.
and
like maybe they had a buddy, like I got friends that they're strictly muskie guys, and those guys are messed in the head.
yeah,
They're 7-pound largemouth. They're like, oh, this freaking thing, But
yeah, exactly.
But if they're talking to their buddies who are bass guys, they're like, dude, I caught 3 bass today over 6 pounds in the Northeast on this muskie lure. Somewhere along the line, I'm sure somebody dib and dabbed in it,
Yeah,
But-
but the interesting thing is that they didn't, and I know that Al Lindner has most likely caught big largemouth or even big smallmouth on muskie lures like the old grandma and stuff like that.
Right.
But they never even mentioned it in Fisherman. I'm
Right.
pretty confident I've read every In Fisherman that's ever been published,
Yeah.
and I don't recall ever reading an article in that magazine about them catching bass on a muskie lure.
Yeah.
So, but you knew that there had to be incidental catches.
Yeah. One of the big things we ran into problems was tackle. The rods.
Yeah, there was no tackle. I mean, flipping sticks is all we had. That's what we mainly threw that stuff on.
Yeah. I mean, smaller baits, sure, but you start we were throwing, like Donnie Musso metal lips are 10 inches, and they're 4.5 ounces or whatever. They're over 4.5 ounces. You ain't doing that on a flipping stick.
Well, but that's what we were doing even back in the early days of the Castaic hard bait. We were throwing on all flipping sticks because that's the heaviest rod that was available.
We were using surf sticks.
Oh wow!
8, 10 footers.
Man, we could bomb that thing out there. We look like I mean, dude. All right. So my buddy had this little 12-foot dinghy boat. Man, there was a Grumman. There was like 20 different layers of lead paint on it. Who knows what you're gonna catch when you crawl into the rock. we were sticking way past the bow. When you came into the dock, you had to watch you didn't break your rods off because there's surf sticks on this little 12-foot. Oh, dude, it was a show. And I mean, we had guys that used to laugh at us because they'd be like, "What are you fishing?" I mean, there's these giant lures, man. I mean, they're huge. They got metal lips on them and stuff, and they're like, "What are you fishing for, muskie?" And we're like, "No." And they're like, "What? Hybrids?" Because at the time, this lake I fished, we didn't even have stripers in there yet. And they're like, "Hybrids?" And we're like, "No." And they're like, "What are you fishing for?" We're like, "Bass, largemouth." Ha! Yeah, good luck with that. Dude, we heard that so many times. Oh, it was crazy, man. And we're like, me and my buddy Dennis, we're like, after that, I mean, we had the whole thing to ourselves over here. Nobody was filming. Nobody.
So what bait fish, or what made you start throwing big baits in the freshwater for bass?
Gizzard shad.
So you guys got gizzard shad up there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the lakes around here, the one lake that's down the road from me, we got more gizzard shad than you can imagine, and they grow like 14 plus inches. We got owleyes by the billions, bluegills by the billions, golden shiners by the millions, and crappie. Like the crappie population in our lake over the last 5 years has exploded. So, I mean, these bass, it's a special place, and we catch big ones. They don't have to, like in the fall, these fish don't group up and hunt down, but they literally do the same thing they do all year. They sit in a spot, and they wait. Every 5 minutes, there's something going by them. They don't have to. Yeah, it's special here. But yeah,
that's cool.
In the early spring, that started all this.
So your first baits, were they gizzard shad shaped?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we had nothing to go by. I didn't know, we're just like two kids and we're trying to figure this out. And to me, like putting a joint, actually I shouldn't say that because we didn't even know about joining them at that time. We were just trying to get a profile. And then like sink rates, like we had nothing to go by. I mean, here's the crazy thing. These fish never saw anything artificial of such. Some of these baits we made, like they wouldn't even swim. You work on it real, they just come in like a laser line and they still got smacked. They just,
wow.
and we figured out it just had to be a slow sinker. Like the longer hang time, the better for these bass up here.
Right.
Longer we can keep a bait, we start making like floaters. And, then we start really hammering on the crank hard and they will roll. They will roll out on their side and then they flutter back, slowly sink. Damn it, man. Them things ate them like that. Because if you think about it, that bait's only, our gizzard shad up here don't get wide. They're 1/2 inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch wide at the widest. So if there's a bass that's like down on a ledge, like when they start scooting up for winter in the springtime, and they come up on this ledge and, it's anywhere from 12 to 16 feet of water above them. And you got a bait that's only 1/2 inch, 3/4 of an inch. And you're just, and springtime, we got snow melt, we got everything. The water's not clean. It's got a tint to it or muddy. We would get bit. But when we start rolling these baits, and that, because you think about it, you go from 3/4 inch to like 3 inches or plus. That's a big profile.
Yeah.
Even with muddy water, it's amazing how, like with muddy water, like it's our perspective. We all done it. We take a jig and drop it in the water, like, oh, it disappears at 12 inches, 12 inches visibility. Bull crap. That's our perspective.
Well, but a lot of the times that muddy water is in a layer on the surface, and what's below it is clear because you've got a density difference there, and so you can have clear water below that mud line.
Yeah, well, yeah, and it will get cleaner as it goes down, but still, now they don't see the the detail of anything, but all they have to see is that profile. And my God, it was crazy. So like the one lure I actually designed back in the COVID days, I was out of work for 3 months, and I'm like, I'm carving a new glider up. This is still me doing wood, and it was the donk. And what I did with the donk was, it's a slow bait. It is not a bait to burn and chop on. That's not what it's intended for. Because every fish I caught up here that was over 8 pounds or up to double digit was on a pause or making it roll. And then there's a lot of guys, man. They're like, man, I don't want that bait rolling out. Blah, blah. You're missing out on something, especially if you're fishing northern strains. Southern strains, that's a different fish. But we're talking northern strains here, north of the Mason-Dixon line.
Speaking of that, Keith, I want to make some heads explode. In Pennsylvania, the state record largemouth is 11 pounds, 3 ounces.
Mm-hmm.
It's been around for a while.
Mm-hmm.
How many, I was blown away when you shared this with us the other night at the Hall of Fame party. How many Pennsylvania 10-pounders have you caught?
5.
5! I'm guessing that's roughly 5 times as many as any other human being.
Yeah, and like some guys think it's all from the same lake. It's not. There's some good lakes around here. Now it's actually getting harder because, obviously the whole big swim bait thing is really exploding. And some of these fish are starting to get educated, which is where I went the route with that glider that's foiled. I had to. So that bait's actually molded off of an actual gizzard shad, and then I had to foil it and to bring back the realism. Like there's no, man-made looking stuff. Like it's literally as close as I can get to a real gizzard shad without it being alive, and just trying to find that other edge.
It's amazing. Now, a lot of guys, including big-time tournament fishermen, like one of your and my heroes. I know we both really admire Rick Clunn. By the way, folks, Keith was hitting it off great with Bill Dance, but he was not ready to meet Rick Clunn. and I said, I get it, man. I get it. Rick can be he's a wonderful guy, but I wish you had told me. I would have been happy to introduce you. Anyway, Clunn is a believer that there needs to be a distinction between the natural offering and an artificial offering to make bass target it and zero in on it. I guess the gliding or the action of a bait, no matter how close it may look to a gizzard shad, is always going to be something a little bit different from the real thing.
Right.
What is your attitude toward that? You're obviously, that gizzard shad you've made as close to the real thing as you possibly can in appearance, but it's obviously not quite the same in terms of action and behavior. Where do you draw the line? What is your goal when you're designing a bait other than it catch fish?
All right. So, all right. I'm going to touch on something, like with trigger collars. I have a bait. Actually, it's a paint job I do on a bait. And it's crazy because I actually discovered this last winter. And, our winters can be rough and they can be whatever. But hopefully we can still fish into January. And usually by January, they start to freeze over, typically. But December is like a month where we hit some big ones, man. So we were out there and I'm throwing a very natural looking gizzard shad. And I had nothing come up. I'm doing all the tricks, super slow, long pauses. I was chopping on a couple of them, just trying to get a reaction bite because a lot of these fish are in 4 feet of water. They're still in the grass. And I do this one paint job. It's called a lava. It's crazy looking. And it's just like, it looks like a marble of like fluorescent orange and blacks. And, there's yellows and some reds in there. And it's just it's a array of colors and it makes no sense. And I just got done painting it, and I wanted just to throw it just to make sure that one didn't need to be tuned in or anything. And literally my first cast out there, I whaled a giant. And I'm like, maybe it was just, a lucky shot. Yeah, right. I mean, the water is like 36 degrees,
Huh.
and I whacked this good one, and I'm like, all right, so I'm throwing around. 5 minutes later, I whack like a little 4.5 pounder, which is still good fish. I whack a 4.5 and smoked it. I mean, smoked it. And I'm like, there's something going on here. What I want to know is, not to get off subject, but trigger colors. When that water's cold like that, and we all had this thing like growing up, like they're talking like, oh, these fish are so lethargic, and you got bull crap. And I tell you what, since Live Scope came out, now I when I'm throwing in the grass, I don't have any of my electronics on. I'm putting my Live Scope on. I'm straight up. I know where I need to be. I know where to throw it. I don't need anything pinging in the water because these big fish get spooky up shallow. Where the hell was I going with this?
You were talking about getting a little bit esoteric there, but
Trigger colors.
Trigger colors and
All
stuff
right.
like that. And you had one with all the blacks and the yellows.
Yeah.
And
So is trigger colors like associated, like, because when they're cold-blooded fish. We all know that. Does their brain slow down? Does their eyesight change? Do they have a harder time seeing something when the water's like below 40?
I've heard people speculate about that.
Yeah, I'm not.
But I don't know the answer.
I would love to know, like proven records of, does it affect their eyesight? I mean, because this bait, there ain't nothing that swims in the water even looks close to like with the coloration of that. I mean,
yeah, but I think that we've proven time and time again that crazy colors, like the colors that people get painted for walleye fishing, for example, rainbow colors. I mean, there's nothing in nature.
I can see walleye because it's deeper in the water column.
Yeah,
like
but
out quicker. Like, all right, I can see that. But
there are some walleye colors and jerk baits that I use for largemouth that just get destroyed.
Yeah. So
and
when you do that, is it like below 40, below 50?
No,
Warm?
it's even in 90-degree water they eat them. It just depends on what the fish wants. Maybe it's something that they've never seen before and they're curious, and it's kind of like an albino fish always doesn't have a very long life because it's very prominent out there.
Sure. Yeah, it's just something I'm curious on.
Keith Thomas, you got to next time you see ice in Pennsylvania or New Jersey, you come on down to Florida. You got a place right here, and you and I will pay a visit to some really good and highly educated and skilled biologists.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about that with these guys. Plus, we'll also go fishing, and I have access to some pretty good water.
Yeah,
so you get down here.
The coldest I caught fish on gliders here was 34 degrees.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that
doesn't surprise me.
Now, here's the thing: when that water gets below like 35, they do slow down on how they attack.
Yeah, because they're in a block of ice, Keith.
Dude, okay. So here, since Live Scope, like in wintertime, like some of these fish, they're still up shallow, and a lot of them go out to the wintering grounds or they're out like 25 feet or whatever. Dude, since I got Live Scope, throw whatever the hell you know about wintering bass out the window. I'm not joking.
Well, I mean, look at ice out. I mean, literally, you could be out there fishing in the spring just as the lake is breaking up. And those fish are back up into 2-3 foot of water.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
I mean, go ahead.
So we'll be in like 25, 30 feet. It's January. That water's 34 degrees. Yeah. And we'll drop a glider. I'll put some lead wire on the shanks of the hook and stuff, and I'll sink them down. And now I'm scoping, And I'll drop that bait. It takes forever, to get it all the way down to the bottom. And I'll keep it like a foot or two off the bottom, and I just bump it, turn it left, turn it right, and let it sit, and then turn it. And then, like live scope, I had the Garmin. It doesn't pick up fish if their belly's down. I can't really see them that good, but I have a pretty good idea where they're going to be. And all of a sudden, you'll just see this thing come up and just grab it. I mean, grab it. And they're like, what? And then you start looking around, and then there's fishing like 20 feet that are cruising. This is 34-degree water.
Yeah.
They're moving.
We saw the same thing in Idaho,
Moving. We all, growing up, we all thought like, oh, these fish are laying on the bottom. They're literally like hibernating, bull crap. I mean, some of them, I'm sure, or if you have a really wicked state that gets crazy cold. But here, I mean, the lake's freezing over. Like the coves, you can't even get into the coves because they're iced over. And we're watching fish swim, like moving.
Yep.
Live scope is teaching so many people so many things about all kinds of fish, but particularly bass. That's where all the money's being spent on those kind of electronics. And Terry and I have discussed before, we think the world record would have been broken multiple times in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s if there had been live scope out in Southern California.
Easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
And I got to like your chances, man, of breaking the Pennsylvania record. 5 over 10 from Pennsylvania. The state record is 40 years old at 11.3. I want to see Keith Thomas break that. Is that a goal of yours or just something that's in the back of your mind when you go?
No, it is a goal. It's a huge goal. But the state of Pennsylvania needs to get caught up on the times. For that fish to be recorded, they take it, they kill it. It's a dead fish. Sure.
That's true of most states, actually.
I can't. If I do break it, will it be official? Probably not.
I'm not an advocate of killing fish generally, but I got to believe a fish that's over 11 pounds in Pennsylvania is toward the end of its life cycle.
It is.
And I would, I guess I'm a bigger fan of records and the history of it all than I am about an individual fish. So if you catch an 11.5, 11.6, 12, I hope you keep it.
Yeah,
I hope you take it wherever you got to take it. And,
you have our blessing, son.
Yeah, we forgive you. We forgive you. But I just
I look at it this way. The odds of like catching a fish that's double digit, any size in the Northeast, the odds of that fish getting to that is staggering.
Oh, yeah.
Lakes around me, they're so pressured, and they get hit. I don't know, man. Like, I think it would have to be if she looks beat up and she reeled her in like a wet sock. Okay, I might. But if she fought, and she's clean, I'll probably record it, measure her girth, length, put her on the scale, and let her go. I
admire
you for that, but I still want you to keep the fish.
What if it was like 13 and a half?
Huh?
What if it was 13 and a half? Or
break
over
the record by 2
pounds?
plus.
You're really turning the screws on me, man.
Yeah. That's what we're for. I mean, a teener out of the freaking Northeast. Holy crap.
If you caught a 13 plus in Pennsylvania, you will never see a fish that size again.
No.
It's your one shot.
Yeah, and it's getting harder to find. Like, I usually crack a bunch of them over 8 every year, quite a few of them. Some years I bust like 3 over 9. But the double digits, they're getting far and fewer between. I don't know if it's the fishing pressure or, like some of these lakes hit their prime and now, because everything's a roller coaster,
Yep.
You talk about about the big fish you're able to catch there. Are there not a lot of guys in Pennsylvania, New Jersey throwing big swim baits?
It's big now.
I was thinking because our
Right.
mutual friends, it
And
seems like that's all they want to do.
everybody's blaming me now. So
Well, yeah, man, you got
that's
5 over 10 from Pennsylvania. Uh,
yeah.
that's got to
And,
be.
all right. So
That's,
I have a friend that lives out in like the central part of PA. I'm on the eastern side. He's like central, almost western, and he's fishing this lake. I'm not going to name the lake, but and I told him it's like, dude, I sent him one of my gliders, and he's like, no, they just eat, like these little 4-inch or smaller alewives.
No.
I'm like, you got carp in there? You got smaller bass in there? You got creek chubs in there? You got white suckers in there? They eat bigger stuff.
Yep.
They eat their own. They don't care. They're
yes. I've always thought that a baby bass color is way underrated in trophy fishing.
yeah.
Do you fish a lot of baby bass colors, or do you mostly stick to
I
your gizzard, shad?
I have done it, and I've done pretty well. A pattern that I haven't done in a while, and man, they do at certain times is baby carp.
Baby carp.
Yeah, or like a white sucker. But when you do that, you are now playing the game with muskies. And I've lost 4 gliders, and this is back when I hand carved them. I lost 4 in one morning because of muskies.
Damn.
Yeah, that's what I said. Damn.
Let's change gears a little bit because you and Terry can take this next part of the conversation to a level that I don't even begin to understand. But you mentioned originally you were carving these baits out of wood. Terry
Yeah.
was among the first, if not the first guy out in
Yep.
California to start making these baits out of resins. And tell us about that because that fascinates me, even though I know it's not something I will personally ever do.
Yeah.
Good.
So how the hell did you how did you get into the resin thing? And what year did you get into the resin thing?
2020.
It took you that long.
Yeah.
Wow.
All right. So like I wasn't like with the gliders, even some of my friends didn't even know I the extent of what I was doing because I kind of kept it quiet. I'm very open about fish tactics and stuff, but like with the gliders, I kept it quiet. My one really good friend that fished with me for years, he knew about it. But like a lot of other guys, I cut that bait off before we came in, so it's not laying on the deck of the boat. And
Right.
But you
carving
still
wood,
got the surf rod.
No,
no,
not anymore.
I should break that out just for old time's sake. I mean, it looked like a Guggen. Um, no, but like carving, man, that stuff tickles my soul, man. Like when you're in your shop and you take a block of wood and then you lay your templates on it and you cut it out on the bandsaw and then and you start rounding it over and this piece of wood's becoming something, from your hands and then you start carving in the gills and the fins and all that. I don't know, man. There's something so cool. Like, and you're just in your shop, you got some nice music playing, you got a nice tall beer there, and you're just doing your thing. And then the hard
Yeah.
thing, like if I did a run of them, because obviously wood is a natural product, and the weight to buoyancy ratios are all over the place. It's making them all swim the same. That was the challenge.
Yep.
I mean, you can, but like this one's going to weigh 3.3 and this one's going to weigh 3.4 or whatever. You're going to have different just because it's a natural product. But the carving of it, oh my God, I love it. I
Yeah, but
haven't.
still, with the resin, I mean, you can still get your carving, Jones going, but
Sure.
then you take that bait that you've got perfected, and then you duplicate it. And that was the whole thing about Rago and Scott when we were sitting at Paris that night. you know,
He's talking
they
about
couldn't make
Scott Whitmore, the guy who made the triple trip, who makes the triple trout. So I
makes
have to fill
yeah.
in. So when you just reference people by
Sorry.
first name,
Um,
I mean, we can talk about Rick and Bill all day long if you want to.
yeah, but you know, it was to the point to where they couldn't produce baits fast enough, and that's what they wanted to do, was produce baits for a living. And that's when, you know, we came up with that resin concept back in 1999.
Yeah.
And you know, we kept it under wraps until some guys on Tackle Underground figured it out in 2007, which is what surprised me. That because were you hanging out on Tackle Underground back in that time period, or
I dipped and dabbed in it. Uh, to say I was on there, not much.
okay,
Like everything I did, whether it was like, surf plugs or, like the freshwater baits I make, I didn't want to be influenced by somebody.
oh, that's
It's kind of like, and you kind of see it today a little bit, you know,
a little
um,
bit.
a little more and a little bit. But all right, so we're in the other problem today is, I molded a gizzard shad, and it looks like this guy's bait and this guy's bait, this guy's bait. We're flooded. There's only so many ways you can do a bait today until it doesn't look like what you're trying to represent. But going back to the resin, once I came out and I started selling something, like the demand was just like it was insane. I mean, I had a
Yeah,
pretty big following from like with the surf casting, but when I went and started releasing some of my freshwater stuff, it was crazy. I mean, I'm very humbled by it. Very lucky guy because there's so many builders out there today, and some really good ones, But
yeah.
yeah, the res. I had no choice,
I
and it
think your gizzard shad is the best looking bait I've seen.
thanks. That means a lot, man. It really does. I mean,
It
I've
it was
there's a lot.
amazing, and how thin it is. That's what blew me away. Is
it is, and I've
it's
only heard
amazing.
good things about it in the water. I haven't seen it in the water, but I know about some of the fish it's caught from
Yeah,
mutual friends who have the bait, and
yeah,
everybody's enormously impressed with it. That's why we're so excited to have you on, and
yeah,
also to show that these things are terrifically successful in the East, and that there was an East Coast contingent of guys who were doing some of the same things at about the same times.
yeah.
And
Crazy to me because, like I said, we didn't have any outside contact. I
Yeah,
mean, we're in the sticks here, man. Like,
right.
it's not like you know, like today. Holy
So
crap,
so
info.
let me ask you this. I mean, your gliders, the ones that I've seen on your Facebook page, they all resemble a gizzard shad.
Yeah,
But Pennsylvania is also known as a trout state.
yeah.
How come you're not making any trout swim baits?
I do.
I mean that. Oh, you do?
Just because
he makes 57 different baits, Terry.
Well, I know, but I haven't
Some
seen
of
a
them have
trout
to be
bait.
a trout, right?
So I went through the whole. It was like a 2-week process with a damn gizzard shad and molding them. I don't have cast nets, so I spent 2 days on my lake trying to snag these things with a treble hook and a weight. And then you snag the right one, but you tore the living hell out of it, and you're like, back at
Yeah.
it. But what I do want to do, now I carved some trouts. But what I do want to do, I want to mold the trout
Mm-hmm.
and foil it, and it'll be as
Oh,
real as you can get.
I
that'll
Like
want to
be
be your first
gorgeous.
customer for that.
that.
Yeah.
That's on my list. This winter is getting a trout. Now the size, I'm not sure. I'm thinking I don't want to go like giant with it because we got lakes just to the north of me that they got a lot of trout in them and stuff. But a lot of those trout that get in there, they're stockers.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking something like either between like 9 to like maybe 11 inches. I think I want to do
Yeah.
something bite size.
Yep.
If that works out good and I get it swim the way I want it, maybe I'll do a bigger one, like a 12 to 14 or something. Like
Right.
for a true trophy hunter.
Well, you look at all the original castaic hard baits, and they're all 8 inches long because that is the size that they used to plant in all the California lakes was 8 inches. They were
Right.
three to five fish to a pound, and I mean that's what those fish were keying in on,
Yeah.
and it wasn't until the Department of Fish and Game started getting pissed off that all the bass were eating all the trout, and the trout fishermen were complaining that they started stocking bigger trout, and that's when you started to see the swim baits go up to 16 inches.
Yeah, that'll fix them. Let's stock bigger vitamin T.
Right.
Yeah, like a bass, a big mature bass isn't going to eat it, right?
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
crazy.
So
Another
you said
soft raid, prepackaged meal for me. I like it.
so. This may be a stupid question based upon what you said a bit ago.
Mm-hmm.
Did you have any bait making mentors, people that you looked up to, or did you just learn all this stuff on your own?
And the glide baits, all myself. Like we didn't, like I said, we didn't have any books, nothing to read. I mean, we just winged it.
Is there anybody whose work you admire today, though?
Huh?
Is there anybody out there who, since you did it all yourself, I really admire that. I think that's amazing and wonderful. But now that you're there, now that you're selling baits far faster than you could ever make them at really at actually very reasonable prices, but still a lot of money. Is there anybody whose work you admire out there and you say, wow, this guy's really got it going on. I'd love to talk to him. And anybody like that?
Yeah, there's a couple guys.
When I see you at events, Keith, where there are other people maybe who are kind of in the same space or trying to be in the same space, you're hanging out with Brian the Carpenter and Ike and Pete Glusick. You're not out there mingling with the other guys who are doing some of the same stuff. And I'm curious about that.
If I want like to really talk to somebody about baits, it would be something that maybe I don't make. Like I make a wake bait. Do I make a great one? I don't know. I catch on them, but like Joey from like Psycho Gill. I would love to shoot the shit with him, and not so much like try to copy what he does, but like his process. Like how did you come up? Yeah, that's what intrigues me. Is did you carve it? Yeah, and there's the other thing. You get like I'm a garage builder. I like making like all the other baits I do. I start off with a piece of paper and I draw it, and then I transfer that paper to a template and so on, and then I carve them. Now you have like 3D, printers and computer stuff, and like they're so perfectly matched on both sides, and I don't know. To me, I don't think I will ever go in that direction just because it's not all right. How do I put this? So when somebody carves something from their mind and it's part of your soul, it's you.
You're an artisan.
Well, it's more than that. It's you. It's that's your creation. And like like the donk. Like if you look at both sides with the gill on this side, there's even though I used a template and traced it and then back carved into it, there's still differences. Like a computer generated one, it's like perfect and perfect. Both sides. To me, I don't know, man. Like I like when somebody carves something and then it's them.
Yeah.
It's it's I don't know. It's just me speaking.
I can tell
That's
you,
wonderful.
people like Mickey Ellis and Jerry Rago and Scott Whitmer. all those guys, and even Chomp and Huddleston. They were all, and Alan Cole for that matter. You know, every one of those baits was made by hand until they got to the resin deal. But even the masters that they use for their resin stuff is all hand carved. I mean, you look at some of Mickey Ellis's creations, and they're just, you did that by hand.
Yeah.
It'll blow you away.
Yeah.
And so yeah, these guys are doing 3D and stuff like that. They're almost getting too perfect, like you said.
Right.
Because if you look at a fish is predominantly symmetrical, but they're not perfect.
No.
You know.
I found that out molding the gizzard shad. I mean, because you know we snag bait, or you know you have a bass that spits one out. We don't sit there and look and like, oh, this fin is exactly the same spot, or this, you know, how the gills are. Oh, they're not. They're different. Yeah, they're slightly different, but they're still different.
Yeah.
But I don't know, man. I think carving is part of you, that person who created it. I'm not knocking on the guys who use the 3D. I mean, if that's their thing, have at it. Just to me, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm old school how I do stuff. I'm old school how I foil. Like there's all these different ways that you can put foil on now, and I use Reynolds wrap.
The other night at the Hall of Fame after party, when you were talking with us a little bit about that foil process, it seems so incredibly painstaking, where any little slip means you start over.
And that's the problem. Like, so if there's a glider or lure or whatever that's going to have hooks hanging off of it, that's going to fail, it's a foil. Because the one thing a lot of guys do wrong with foiling today is they use like an auto clear. There's no protection. That hook point goes right through it. As soon as you get water underneath of it, it's going to start, and it's foil. Stuff doesn't like to stick to foil. When I foil, it's over 2 days before I can. Now it's not 2 full days of me working on that one bait. I have to let stuff off gas, but it's a 2-day process before I paint, and then after I paint, then I put the last 2-part epoxy on. There's quite a few steps, but the thing is, you have to be very patient. But if you do it right, man, they will last.
The gizzard shad that we photographed when we were at the Hall of Fame party, from start of your process to build one to end, how much time must lapse? I realize you're not working on that bait every moment, but how much time lapses?
All right, so day one, I'll pour the bait. Like say it's like 7 a.m, I'll pour some baits, and then I let them sit until damn near nighttime. And like the AFL shad, the one that you're talking about with the foil, the back half has very little resin or micro balloons in the resin. That's so I don't have to put any weights back there to level it when I do the sink rates on it. So all the weights are up in the front half. And plus that also strengthens the back half because it has the pin. So I don't have to worry about that breaking. I mean, we were just out on Table Rock and I hit some stuff with it. And I was like, ooh, man, that was a hit, and we're good, But so I let that set for at least 12 hours to let it harden off gas. And then I'll, because I use a mold release, I'll take alcohol, wipe it all down, take 220 grit sandpaper, scuff it, wipe it again with alcohol, and then I start the foil process. And I take the foil and I trace it out on the body, so I have the rough shape of the body on that one half of the with the foil, and then I take 600 grit and I scuff the dull side because that's the side that's going to go against the resin. I scuff that real lightly. just to put some texture into it. It's all about adhesion. Every step that you do in any bait, whether it's saltwater or glider or whatever, everything's about adhesion. You got to have everything stick to everything. And when you add foil in there, stuff don't like to stick to foil, but you can. And then I use a spray adhesive, and I spray both sides. It's basically a contact cement.
Yeah.
That has to be 100% bone dry before you put those two halves together. If it's still a little tacky, you're trapping gases. It's not good. Ask me how I know.
You got these bubbles form underneath your.
Yeah, well, it will separate. Absolutely. Yep. And then from there, I already have the scales imprinted into it. So now my whole glider is covered in foil. 2 real light coats of lacquer. Lacquer sticks to everything. Not heavy coats. Just mist it and another mist. And then I hang them. And then the next day, that's all off gassed. Everything's good. I put a 2-part epoxy over top of that. I let that cure. And then usually by the 3rd day is when I'm painting. And then I the painting takes a while because airbrushing, like everybody, thinks like airbrushing is like spray paint cans or rattle cans.
Oh.
It's not. A process of very slowly building up that color, that tone that you're looking for. So painting takes a while. If you want to do it right and realistic, you can't throw it on there, and it's a process. And then once I'll heat set that on there with a hair dryer, and then the last coat's another coat of 2-part epoxy. So there's 2 layers of 2-part epoxy that's protecting that foil. Like I said earlier, a lot of guys are using like an auto clear, and they're just putting 2-3 shots of clear over it. It's not enough. You get a hook, you're gonna fail. There's a lot of prep. It takes a while.
The attention to detail is remarkable, and I look at some of the prices on your stuff, Keith. The stuff you sell through Missile and so forth, and it's really quite modest. I mean, I see a level of quality in your work that anywhere else would demand a lot more money.
Yeah, I know some of the. I know that, and I can charge probably considerably more, but you start getting into a bracket where they won't throw them. They'll hang them over their mantle.
Don't look behind me. I have lots of baits all over here that I would never throw. Because you have muskies, I got gators.
Yeah. No, I know. Yeah. I don't know which is worse, though.
Really? You don't know which is worse?
They're both gators. They're both gators.
Yeah, they are. Well, we got some of the lakes around here. We got northern pike, we got tiger muskie, and we got purebreds. The purebreds, they're actually, you can see them coming and lining. They're very calculated on how they strike. So a lot of times you can see those guys coming up behind it, and most of the time you got time to rip it out of there. The northern pike, goodbye. Those fish are ahead, man. And how accurate those fish hit is insane. The tiger muskies, they're not so much of a threat because they like a little smaller bait, but once in a while, and they're the same way. They're same as a pike. If they want it, they got it. You don't see it coming.
You talked about some of the one of the guys you had admired. When you go fishing, are you exclusively throwing your own baits, or do you sometimes throw some other stuff?
I throw mine.
That's wonderful. I admire that too.
And no disrespect to anybody else. I got guys, they try to give me a bait, and I'm like, they're like, no, I really want you to have it. I'll throw it here and there. But when I throw mine, I'm never happy. I know it sounds stupid, but I'm always looking to improve. And the only way to improve is to constantly throw your stuff. So a lot of stuff that's on the deck of my boat, I'm always, now that I'm doing resin, I'm always playing with micro balloons, and I'm trying to. You're never happy. You should never be happy as a builder. You should always look to improve, or and a lot of stuff that lays on the deck of my boat, it ain't worth putting hooks on. But I know not to go that way. You got to make those mistakes. And then
Yeah.
you come across something, you're like, oh my God, look at this, and it's like subtle little changes. Maybe it's just a line tie position, but I throw
You
my
mentioned
stuff.
you've made a lot of baits in the past, way back in your carving days that were unjointed. You make a lot of glide baits now. You said you also make a wake bait. What percentage of your fishing is glide bait fishing these days?
For what like year
For
round or
bass, year round for bass. What percentage would you say you're throwing
summertime?
a glide bait?
Summertime, it's tough, and it really is, and that's you get on the deeper brush piles, okay, or the man-made structures like the state of PA. They put these box cribs down there and stuff like that. Springtime's all I do. From this time now on till ice, that's all I'm gonna do. Summer patterns, I would say, honestly, probably 20-30%. Now, if you're throwing putting a wake bait into that, I'll throw a wake bait quite a bit. But like the gizzard shads, the 10-inch baits, it's a deeper bite.
So,
Tournament wise,
you
probably not. I don't.
that's what I was just going to ask you. You belong to a bass club. You tournament fish. How often do you throw a swim bait in a tournament?
You got to have the right conditions. Like,
Yeah.
all right, so like let's say summertime, right? The least amount of time when I do throw them, if you're like 95% of fishermen, if they're sitting in their living room looking out the window going, I ain't going out there in that. Yeah, I'm out there throwing it. When it's snotty, 25,
Yeah.
30, 40 mile an hour winds, I'm chucking it. Everything's in your favor.
Can you tell us about your setup? What do you like for rod, reel, line for most of your glide bait fishing?
So line, 50-pound. All right, so I do stuff a little different. There's guys that do it, but majority don't. I'm a braid the leader guy, and there's one main reason why I do braid the leader. I can't stand having coils in my line going from my rod tip to the bait. Because I do a lot of little micro movements, and I need that full excuse me, I need that full contact with that bait at all times. Like literally just taking that bait and you're just moving the head just a little bit back and forth.
How long a leader are we talking about?
Uh, if the bait's under 4 ounces, 16-pound, and I use a fluoro.
So 16-pound leader. And
Six-
what length of leader?
I always do it so that when I'm reeling up my bait and and I have it hanging off my rod tip to make a cast, my knot is right in front of the reel. Oh, excuse me. I don't reel up my knots.
So you're talking about a 7-foot leader, basically, something like that.
I use Leviathans, which makes an absolute insane glide bait rod, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
And I throw Daiwas also. I'll throw the Daiwas if my bait has like the bigger, heavier hooks on it, just because that rod there's got more backbone than it is parabolic. But which is a good rod. Man, I don't know why I'm coughing my head off. But for that, like mostly 50-pound braid, 16-pound, leader. If the bait's over 4 ounces, 20 pounds. I will go 25 pounds if I'm like in some really snotty stuff, like lay down trees, maybe, tidal water, hitting docks, bulkheads. Yeah, I'll go up to 25, but I've never seen a reason to go higher than that.
So what Daiwa reel are you throwing?
Excuse me?
What Daiwa reel are you throwing?
The Tula 300.
Yeah, everybody likes that
okay.
Tatula TTI 300H, right? 6-3 to 1.
I'm 8-1 guy.
8 to 1, okay.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I keep cutting out here.
No, we hadn't lost your audio. That's a good thing.
Yeah, I don't know. My phone keeps doing this weird thing. So, like I said, I'm in the sticks, man. But yeah, so like the 300, the Daiwa. Oh my god, I love it. I love just To me, it's
you talk to old school swimbait guys, and they're all throwing a 300 or 400 series reel. That's all I throw is a 400 series. For small stuff, I might throw a 200, but I mean, I'm talking a 4 or 5 inch bait. Something that weighs maybe 2.5 ounces. But,
right.
Yeah.
Same way. A lot of times, like I make this one bait. It's called. Well, actually, my kid made it. Excuse me. It's called a mussel hamster. I had Ike on my boat. We were fishing a derb. He's on the back of my boat, and he was throwing a shad around, and he got bit off by one of the muskies. And I told him, I said, hey, before you tie, like another glider on, my kid makes these. They're like 6 inches. And I told him, I said, it's a pretty badass bait, man. He's like, yeah. And he ties it on. And I don't know. It's a couple casts, and he hits a 4.5. And then he's throwing around. And he's like, man, this thing's crazy. I'm like, he made a good bait. I say, he doesn't have a name for it yet. I was like, you want to name it? And Mike's sitting there. I don't know. Mussel hamster. I'm like, what? He's like, well, it's
I like
small. He's like, it's small and mighty. It's a hell of a that thing catches fish. All right, so like summertime, like when you were talking about summer, if I was to pick one bait to throw during summer, it'll be that mussel hamster. That thing just gets chewed. And I get messages like every day from guys who are like, holy crap, man. There's something so special. And when he was designing it, he was 15 at the time when he designed it. And I told him, it's like, listen, make it a profile that's like, it could be a bluegill. It could be a little crappie. It could be a shad. Take all those three and combine it into one bait, like profile wise. That way you can paint it whatever you want. It's going to work. Yeah. And that's what he did. And, I worked with him on weighing it, where to put the hinges and all this in the line. The line tie. But my God, does that thing catch fish? It's crazy. Dude, that thing
fantastic.
Just lands on him, man. But, on the mussel hamster, thanks to Ike,
For the folks listening and watching, I have bad news for you. The mussel hamster is sold out on the Missile Baits website, but hopefully there'll be some more available soon.
Yeah, they were gone. I forget. I don't know if it was Cruz that told me or Byron. They were gone like seconds.
Yeah,
it was insane.
Your stuff is so good, I can't believe it lasts seconds. I'm not surprised that your son, who apparently has gotten into it at the same age when you got started, his stuff is good too. That's congratulations to him.
Yeah. So going back to like the smaller baits, like that bait, I'll throw a lot of times on a flipping stick with a 200 reel. I'll drop down to like 14-pound test for that on the leader because they only weigh like 1.8 ounces.
Yep.
You mentioned fishing with Mike, and you mentioned fishing with Mike Iaconelli, and Terry and I met you through Brian the Carpenter. How did you fall in with the Jersey guys?
So this guy Charles, who was part of Mike's team, he lives up by me, just on the other side of the river in Jersey, and somehow he dropped my name. Mike was doing a shoot for Big Bass Week, and he was just going around to like guys who throw gliders and all this stuff, and that's basically how I got linked up. So Mike shows up at my lake. It's the first time I fished with him, and he's got his camera guy and all this. I got a chase boat with me, and we get out there, and it's flat, it's calm. Dude, this is springtime, and you need that wind. Like here, can you catch them without the wind? Sure, but man, that wind is. And I'm like, I'm freaking out, man. I'm dying on. I'm like, this is gonna suck. We're gonna catch like 3-pounders, maybe a 5, which isn't what we look for here. And I'm like, and then he's just like, don't worry, man. Don't worry. It's gonna happen. The wind's gonna blow. And I'm like, man, they ain't calling for much wind today. I'm like freaking. He's like, don't worry. It'll blow. It'll blow. I don't know what kind of powers that man has, but that wind started blowing, and I'm not kidding you, dude. At the end of the day, to make a long story short, his camera guy came up to me. He goes, "You have any idea what the hell just happened?" And I'm like, "It was good, but it wasn't great." He goes, "Dude," it would take us 4 months to get the footage of what just happened here in 8 hours.
Wow.
I mean, we had back-to-back 7s and.
Jeez.
Oh yeah, dude, it got crazy, man. Like. It was good, but it wasn't great. I mean, we had one bass that came up. It was probably in the 9, maybe a mid-9 range. It just never connected to my lure, man. Like, it was there. I tried to trigger her, and she came up. She was all hot and heavy on it. And Mike turns to me. He's like, holy crap, man. Did you see that? I'm like, oh, yeah, that was a good one. He's like, what's wrong with you, man? I'm like, oh.
He's not excitable. That's his problem.
Oh, yeah. He's Italian. Talks with his hands and stuff.
Good old Italian.
Yeah.
Keith, can you...
So much fun, though. And then from there, man, we just, we fish quite a bit. Like, here.
I know those guys think the world of you.
What's that?
I know those guys just think the world of you.
Yeah, well, I think even more higher than what they think of me, because what they've done for me is they let me in that family, to become like really good friends with Mike, and never in a million years, like I fished with some other guys, pros, and like Gray Buck. I introduced Gray Buck to the whole glide bait. And
Gray Buck seems like a super nice guy, obviously very talented angler.
Dude, Gray Buck and his wife, they're some of the nicest people you ever meet.
Seems like it. I only had a chance to talk with him briefly at a classic expo or something, but just seemed like a great guy.
He is beyond great. I'll never say anything negative about him and his wife. They're spectacular. But I totally corrupted his mind.
I'm jumping all around. I apologize for that, Keith. My mind is not organized.
I'm with you.
Take us through kind of your go-to retrieve when you're fishing a glide bait most often.
Okay, so first off, I try to let the fish tell me how they want it. The Northeast, like I said earlier, back, I've never caught one over 8, like burning it, or they always will hit it for me when it's stopped. So, like, to me, the pause is the draw. The action gets their attention, but that pause, and it's almost like you're reassuring them if that bait's just sitting there, and maybe I'm just doing some little micro movements, just so they know it's alive, And the longer I can hold that there, whether it's over like a submerged stump or a weed line that comes out to a point where I know there's probably a pretty good chance there's a good fish on this, the longer I can hold it there, the bigger the fish is going to be. And a lot of guys.
So you're doing a lot of small movements.
Very
none of these big, wide sweeping movements.
that's to get attention. So there's another thing, like what, and there's times when you chop it here. There is times, and what it is like you have to have like the right weather conditions. So like not too just last week we had like a tropical depression that dumped a lot of rain here. It was windy. It got cold. The nights were down in the mid 40s. Daytime highs were like 62. Water temperatures are crashing. The oxygen levels in that water was insanely high. You better chop. Yeah,
And
that's
when you
when we
say
start.
chop, I mean I know that's a swim bait. That's when you're talking about a staccato kind of half
Yeah,
turns.
yeah, and you're just like that bait just slashing back for back, and
Yeah.
then let it sit for a couple seconds, and that's when they're gonna hit it, and it matches like their enthusiasm or whatever, because they're in oxygenated water now. You get those droughty periods where you go like a week or two without rain. You gotta slow it down, and I think it has a lot to do with the oxygen levels.
Hmm.
Because I've noticed this over the years when we get like snotty weather, not just like a thunderstorm that came through. I mean, all right, that could fire them up, but I'm talking like you get like a 2, 3, maybe a 4 day period of wind and rain, and the temps are coming down, and the dissolved oxygen levels are going up, and they just they're fired up.
Mm-hmm.
It's they're pumped up. So
That
sometimes like
Yep.
that choppy retrieve, but still, I'll chop it like 3, 4 times pretty hard, and then I'll let it sit.
when you
And
talk
that,
about the micro movements, are you making those micro movements with the reel or
yeah,
or the rod tip?
no, in the reel, everything's in the reel. My
Everything's the reel.
my rod tip always points to my bait. I never put my rod tip up, off to the left, off to the right. Maybe if I got to mend some line, to keep it straight or whatever, if there is current. But my rod tip generally points right at that bait the whole time. And that's why I go a braid to leader, because those coils, I want full contact with that bait at all times. So
Mm-hmm.
when I'm doing those little micro movements, and I do most of that micro movements like trees, like submerged trees, um, where the branches are just below the surface, or like grass lines. Uh, that's where, man, there is something uh, like for these northern strains. And it's that whole thing. It's kind of like it's just sitting there, and it's almost like tantalizing them.
Right.
It's something. Yeah, but like I said, if I swim it and I do a short pause and then swim it or chop it and like real short pause, do I catch fish? Sure. Am I going to catch the right one? Probably not. Not up here. It's a little different north of the Mason-Dixon line. These fish are a little, you know, if you're hitting a fish that's 7, 8 pounds, that's an old fish up here.
Yeah.
I mean, right? Texas got freaking 10 pounders that are 5 years old.
Yeah.
That's still a
Have you?
high fish. That's still a freaking kid. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, you can get all choppy and crazy with them. They're they're younger.
So have you fished in the South and compared the fishing down here to the
Yes.
fishing up there,
Yeah.
and you've noticed the
Yeah.
difference between these? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. There is. At least where I live here in the Northeast. But like I said, there is things that do change that. But I'm talking like overall. Overall, I mean, weather
Right.
conditions hype things up. Time of the year too. Leading up to a full moon. Like to me, like I get all tickly inside when it's like springtime or like November and December, and it's like the fourth day to a full moon.
There's
Man,
something magical about the 4 days
dude,
before and the 4 days after. Those
dude,
8 days you got to be on the water.
you better be on that water. And here's the other thing. So, like your high percentage areas, like where I know, like, okay, there is a giant that's going to be whatever. Let's just say it's a tree. And I know there's a giant on this tree. I will save that until those lunar pools of that, like, like when you start getting into closer to the full moon, it starts to become more of a midday bite than it is like a morning or, evening bite. I'll save that until, because I always watch these lunar pools and guys are like, oh, that's crazy. It don't mean nothing. Bull crap. Bull crap. I caught most of mine following those lunar pools and hitting those high percentage areas where I think or know a giant is living. I want everything in my favor.
Yep.
And that's part of it. That's, then it comes down to angles and, presentation, but yeah, I want everything in my favor.
Right.
Terry, you asked if he's ever fished down south. Obviously, where do you think he learned to properly do the bill of his cap? Obviously, he's been down south.
Oh wait,
I wear my
No, don't
I
do
wear
that.
my hat. I wear my hat like that. I'm no flat brim dude.
Don't go all Jersey on us. Don't go all Philadelphia on us there, Keith. Don't do
Oh
it.
god.
that way. I'm not
So
far enough.
what is the sink rate for your baits? Does it vary, or do you like one specific sink rate?
So to me, there's two sink rates that I like. It's insanely slow and insanely slow rising. Some people call them high float, low float, whatever. I go by sink rate and rising. So sink rates to me like an inch a second.
Okay.
That's where
Yeah, that's slow.
Yeah.
that's where I want to be for mine. Or like a super slow riser where I can pump it down 4 to 6 feet and we'll talk like over a tree. Or even like deeper grass. I can pump rod tip it down 4 or 6 feet. And then as it's coming up, I'm just little bumps. I mean, going back earlier, you still have to find out. I'm not just going out there and just that's all I'm doing today. The bass have to tell you how they want it. But if they're on the lethargic end, which a lot of times they are, that's when those things really like the longer you can hold that bait in that area. My God, it's almost like you're tantalizing them or teasing them. But bass do calculate, man. If I was a severely overbeast person and I'm sitting in my recliner and, they gave my meal to a 5-year-old kid that got, hyped up on sugar and he's running around with my tray of food, I ain't getting up. Chances of me catching that kid are freaking slim to none. But if you put that meal on a tortoise, I'll get up and we'll walk 60 yards because I'm going to catch that sucker and I'm going to eat.
I love it. I love it.
That's how, that's in those conditions when those bass are lethargic. That's what I do. It's been working. So the longer you put it there, it's like they calculate, and you're reassuring them that if they swim over there, they're eating it. And there's a lot of times that I found. Let's say I'm throwing like an 8 or 10-inch bait, and I can't get them bastards to come up or look at it, or they kind of come up and they get like 3 feet from it and they do that turn and you're like, damn it. There's times when I'll put a 12-inch on.
Yep.
And they will not that thing. It's crazy. I tell guys all the time, like whatever, like if they're getting into the whole swim bait thing or throwing gliders, take whatever you know about bass fishing and throw it out the damn window.
Yeah, that'd be very counterintuitive for a lot of people. That'd be the opposite of what they do. They'd go smaller.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
Right,
Keith. One of the things I really admire about you, Keith, and first of all, I love the American flag backdrop you got there. But you do a lot of work with veterans who have PTSD, taking them fishing and helping them deal with the problems that have plagued them. I admire you for that so much.
Yeah,
thank you for that.
We owe it to those boys, man.
Yep.
No question.
And some of the stuff that they gone through, so they have like they clam up, with the PTSD, and And what fishing does, and it has not failed me, man. I'm not saying I cured people, but I gave them a whole new outlook. And what it is, and I never give them a painted lure. I always give them a raw, and I don't call them bone because they're white when they come out of my molds. And I put the tape on the eyes, and I put a kill dot. You always got to put a kill dot, and then I put the hooks on. That thing glows in the water. They see that thing, 30, 40 yards out. They bombing out that far. They're watching that bait the whole time, and it's about focus. They're not thinking about what happened to them or what they went through. Everything that to them at that time is watching that bait, and then it gets annihilated. And they're like schoolgirls screaming when it happens, dude. And whatever, and dude, I'm telling you, man, it's crazy. And it's just fishing. It's just fishing. But these, I had guys on my boat that never bass fished. Never. The last guy I had out, him and I became really good friends now. And his wife was telling me, she's like, don't be surprised if he doesn't say more than 5 words on the boat all day. He was that bad. Like, really bad.
Yeah.
Dude, he hit that first fish. It was like a light switch. Wouldn't shut up. Smiling, laughing. Just changed him.
That's cool.
That's
And it's
amazing.
not
That's
him.
Cool.
It's
Fishing
not.
is therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's
Fishing is
extremely. And then they're like,
everything.
and then they're calling me like the next day, man, I gotta buy a boat. I'm like, you buy a boat, I'll give you the baits.
Considering
I got so many rods here, I'll give you a complete setup for throwing glides, and I'll supply you with the glides.
It's very generous of you with your time, very generous of you with the equipment. And what's the best way for folks to pick up some black Talon custom lures?
Good luck. It's oh my god,
They're
dude,
hard to come by.
I gotta do something because some of these guys, man, they are good on these drops. Like they're on it and they get them. And some of these guys been like 3, 4, 5 drops in a row. Then I get the messages, from guys who are like, oh, I've been trying for so long.
Yeah.
I feel bad. I'm like, so I think I might start doing, like, if you have purchased one, before, can you just sit this one out and try? Because they go. I mean, a lot of times I don't even make an announcement anymore. I just drop them.
Yeah.
So people need to just be members of your Facebook page, and they need to be paying, check it out a lot.
I gotta get a web page, man. I'm 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 a pretty laid back guy, so this whole like web page is all. It's just simpler to have a Facebook page for now. But I do have to get a web page, and I gotta make that extra step now.
Well, folks, Black Talon Custom Lures. You can find him on Facebook, and hopefully one of these days before too long, you'll find Keith's website. But Black Talon Custom Lures, they're the best looking baits I've seen. I mean, they're remarkable. His gizzard shad is, you truly think that with the aid of a talented veterinarian, it will swim again, and and the gills will move, and this thing will swim away. Remarkable work, sir.
Thank
you.
It means a lot coming from you, man. I appreciate it.
No,
because when you build and do this, you don't expect, like I said, I'm so fortunate and so humbled by everything that's been happening, because there is a lot of guys that do this. It's very humbling.
Do you do it full time?
Mostly, yeah.
So you don't have another job that you do during, not anymore?
Yeah. I do some stuff behind the scenes. I probably shouldn't say that, but I'm trying. Like, man, it's tough, man, when these fish are biting here. I'm a
Yeah,
fisherman,
that's brutal, Keith. That's brutal.
dude. Like when 95% of the fishermen are looking out their window, going, "I ain't going out in that crap." Holy smokes, it's I'm out there, dude. I get all tickly, man. That's when I want to go, and I'm
That's how you get
going.
5 Pennsylvania largemouths over 10 pounds, which I still think is astonishing.
Yeah, they're not all from the same lake. A lot of guys think it's from. It's not.
No,
It's
you're
not.
not. You're not just fishing Castaic Lagoon.
Yeah.
You're spreading it around there and finding them in a lot of different waters, and that makes it even more impressive. But I'm rooting
Yeah,
for you to catch the state record, even if you have to sacrifice one. I'm still rooting for you to do it.
Well, I think if she looks like she's not doing well, I don't know, maybe. But and then the other bad thing is, these aren't real big lakes up here, and you jack a large, a state record. The man, you're gonna have people coming from everywhere, so there is a downside to it. It's
You
not
don't
like
have to tell
You
them
may not
what
have to
lake.
reveal that part. Not every state requires you to reveal where you caught it.
I don't know. I think PA kind of does, because once you hand that fish over, it's their fish, man.
Wait, they don't give it back to you after they've done their exam and all
Oh,
that stuff. So
I don't know about that, but I know they kill it.
I
It's
I think you get to keep the fish. And
I'm
I
sure.
kind of understand why they want to kill the fish, if only to satisfy all the naysayers and the people who would be suspicious of such a thing. Oh, that fish had a dive weight in it. Oh, that fish had walleye fillets in it. Oh, that fish had this or that.
Sure.
And I respect that.
Yeah.
I want the records to be on the up and up because so many are not,
right.
including the world record, Keith. The world record is a fraud, as we will show
Really?
in later episodes of the Big Bass Podcast. But for now, man, thank you so much for your time.
Oh,
We really appreciate you. You're a special talent and a really interesting and cool person. It's been a joy to bump into you on the road now and again.
No, I appreciate you guys, man. This is very humbling, So.
Well, we can't wait to see you again. Maybe the Classic or ICAST next year. I don't know. Hopefully, it'll be before one of those events. But
yeah.
And remember, you have plans immediately after ICAST now, so
I know.
We'll talk about that.
Oh yeah.
Anyway, folks, Terry, before you close us out, I got one correction to make. Anybody who is tuning into this drop of the Big Bass Podcast may have been expecting a live show, but we didn't do a live show this week because I'm going to be on the road on Tuesday when this show drops, so I wasn't going to be able to participate in that. So we're going to push that live show back to October 10th, and it'll be me, Terry, Nathan, answering y'all's questions, taking suggestions about what we can do to make the Big Bass Podcast better, and also taking suggestions about what topics folks might want to cover moving on. I hope everybody's enjoyed this episode with Keith Thomas, a terrific guest, a terrific artist. Terry, I'm going to let you wrap us up.
All right, it's time to slam the door on this episode of the Big Bass Podcast. But before we go, please remember to subscribe, like, share, give us a comment or a review. Small ask, but believe me, it helps us out a lot. And don't forget to check out the website at thebigbasspodcast.com. There you're going to find the Big Bass Podcast calculator and our listings of record bass plus supplementary material on the episodes. It's a work in progress, but if you like the show, you'll love the bigbasspodcast.com. If you want to contact us, our email addresses are ken@thebigbasspodcast.com, terry@thebigbasspodcast.com, and nathan@thebigbasspodcast.com. I'm Terry Battisti, and on behalf of my partners Ken Duke and Nathan Benson, thanks for joining us. Be sure to check back next week. We'll have a new show about a different big bass with a story. Oh, well, we'll be live
Have a
next
live
week.
show. Yeah, we'll be live.
And but anyway, stuff that you can't find anywhere else in the podcast universe. And Ken, what do they got to remember?
Remember, size matters.